Welcome. That was a really bad clap, but it is your friendly neighborhood badger here, and I'm back to talk about a little bit of some, I guess, theory crafting on one of the new skills that has got me really puzzled right now. Now, this, I guess, is going to be a lesson in ambiguity in Path of Exile, a lesson in how damage scales, how life flasks scale, and how they're actually treated, as well as just a bunch of confusion everywhere. Now, all that we have to go off on this skill right now, because they haven't released skill data, is a level 1 Poisonous Concoction. And as we know with level 1 gems, it's almost impossible to tell how the level 20 gem is going to function in terms of what's going to scale on the gem. But that being said, we're going to try and extrapolate as much as we possibly can from this gem to try to figure out whether it's one of the weakest skills that has ever been introduced into Path of Exile or one of the strongest. We just don't really know yet. Now, Explosive Concoction, as we know, really didn't hit the mark in terms of its power and everything like that. But I do feel that Poisonous Concoction actually has a little bit more utility in terms of it being base chaos, meaning that we can scale poison damage really well. Now, we do know that Explosive Concoction does actually, shotgun. So if I actually go back over here, we've got this video right here. If we put this into HD and just put this up like this, this is with, looks like, GMP in here right here, and using the technique of using a golden rule, self-poisoning. So every time that you hit, you've got 100% chance to poison. You can see how many times that you're hitting via the amount of poisons that you've got up here. So you can see right here that we've got 4 poisons and then an extra 5 poisons to make 9 poisons. So just a little bit of a showcase right there from what's their name right here? Wet Dog. Thank you so much, Wet Dog, for testing that on Reddit a little bit ago. So Explosive Concoction can shotgun. Now, being a concoction skill, we can very much assume that Poisonous Concoction is also going to shotgun, either between 4 and 5 projectiles right here. Now, that actually really lends itself very well to poison. You want to be able to stack as many poisons as you can, and Pathfinder has some really nice poison nodes, even 30% increase to Chaos area of effect, a Chaos skill area of effect, and this is a Chaos skill, so you get some nice area of effect, meaning that you can shotgun a lot easier. Not easy to come by on that side of the tree, any area of effect. So, to get that out of the way, yes, we can assume that this can shotgun. But let's just read a little bit more about this skill. So let's read the description. So it throws an explosive bottle that deals unarmed attack damage in an area and has a chance to poison. Can consume charges from a life flask to add further damage. Requires an empty main hand and no offhand weapon. So you can have an offhand shield, just not an offhand weapon. It deals 26 to 39 added chaos damage as its base, a 40% chance to poison on hit, a +6 to critical strike chance. It consumes 2 charges from 1 life flask if possible, and then it deals added chaos damage equal to 3% of the flask's recovery amount if charges were consumed. Now, this is something we're going to come back to a lot in this video right here, of the flask's recovery amount. Now, there's kind of 2 groups of people right now. There's a group of people that think the flask recovery amount is what the flask says on it. So it can only be scaled. For example, if I go to Path of Building right here and I show a Saturated Divine Life Flask, which is relatively the highest you can get right now, it says recovers 5,222 life over 10.4 seconds. Right, so that 5,222 life, that's the first camp of people. That's what the 3% is going to be scaling from. It's that life. If you scale increased life recovery from flasks and everything like that, it's not going to change that number, and therefore it's not going to scale the skill itself. However, there is the opposite end of people who are saying, yes, no, life recovery, flask effect, everything like that does scale it. So you can see right here in the grey text a little bit lower, the effective flask stats is close to 40,000 on a moderately increased tree. Things like a Blood Grip for 100% increased life recovery to flasks, a Watcher's Eye with Vitality, using Pathfinder, and then a couple of nodes on the tree here as well. So I'd say moderately because there's no cluster jewels, anything like that, getting around 40,000. So obviously 5,000 and 40,000, that's a massive difference. So you can see what I'm getting at right here. We don't really know how this skill 100% scales, so it could be relatively weak or it could be relatively strong. Here's just a little bit of text showing right here with a very small amount of maths. So let's consider 5,200 life from the flask, as we had right there. So let's consider similar to Explosive Concoction base, 800 base chaos on this. If we actually go over to Explosive Concoction, we can, extrapolate that. Level 20, we're getting around about 802 to 1200 fire damage, and usually chaos is a little less. So I said 800 chaos base we're going to be getting. If we've got 3% of the 5,200 life from Flask being converted to to chaos damage, that's only 156. So a total of 956 chaos damage, so only 156 flat from the life Flask scaling. This is piss weak terrible, what the heck type of scaling right here. You would not consider whatsoever that this is really how it's going to function, because a 5,200 Flask is the relative top end of a base Flask. But if we do consider the scaling of that actual life recovery, we can very, very respectably get 40k life. This is getting anywhere to like 90 to 100k life over a large duration of time. That could really, really scale. 3% of that is 1200 flat chaos, which is more than doubling the base chaos, which in my eyes is too powerful for a skill like this. That'll be basically meaning that this skill is dealing 2000 base chaos, and that scales with your attack speed. That can shotgun, which can then be applied to poisons. To me, it does scream terrible or broken and none in between. However, there is more to talk about with the skill, because as Path of Exile does like to, show us through example, we just don't know. We just don't know based on what the wording is here. So regardless of whether it's scaling from the actual base life on the Flask itself or scaling from total life recovery, we don't know whether this percentage right here is going to scale with gem levels. This could go from 3% to 9% to 10% maybe. The attack damage additive base could also scale really high as well. We just don't know. We do know that the flat from the cold and the poison flasks, cold and lightning flasks as well on Explosive Concoction do scale with levels, but it's flat. Usually anything that scales with some sort of percent, say for example, Bloodthirst, doesn't scale with levels. I should go Bloodthirst PoE right here, shouldn't I? Doesn't usually scale with levels. We can see right here, 2% added physical damage equal to 2% of max life when on low life, and then it just deals more damage. So we just don't know how this skill is going to be scaling. I would expect they're not going to make the mistake like they did in Explosive Concoction, where they did release it in a very underpowered way. However, there is still the potential for that to happen. And I'm a little bit worried if worst case scenario, that the skill only scales from the life flask itself, so the 5,200 base, and also doesn't increase that 3%, that deal added chaos damage equal to 3% of the flask recovery amount if charges were consumed, then I feel that the skill is going to be vastly underpowered. The last thing that I will talk about is the consume 2 charges from 1 life flask. Now, some people have been arguing with this. I don't agree with the argument that, say for example, this life flask over here has uses 15 charges to then grant 5,000 life. Some people are saying that, if it's consuming 2 charges, then you're only getting, you're only getting 20% of that, or 18, 16%, whatever it actually is, of your total life flask recovery, which is, less than 1,000. That just doesn't make any sense. The way that this skill is really functioning is basically consuming 2 charges on your skill to then grant you added chaos equal to if you press that flask. Now, the only reason it's like this is basically, if this was basically pressing 1 flask, you run out of flask charges in 3 attacks. If you only consume 2 charges, you run out of flask charges in 20 attacks, right? It's basically just meaning that you're not just draining your life flask instantly and then getting no added damage from it whatsoever. That's all I really have to talk about with this skill. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know how you think this skill scales. This video could be up for a day and then we already know how it scales because they might release the gem stuff tomorrow. Who knows? But I just thought I'd, make a fun little video talking about, my little experiments. Well, I guess my stream's little experiments with how this might be scaling. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you think of this skill, whether you think it's going to be good, whether you think it's going to be trash. Remember to hit that sub button as well, as always, and until next time, Badger is out.